Now, the Israeli parliament voted to roll back the 2005 legislation that ordered the evacuation of 4 northern West Bank settlements. That took place at the same time as Israel's unilateral withdrawal from the Gaza Strip, which got a lot more attention. Now, it took only 31 lawmakers to vote in favor of this potentially seismic shift in Israel's long-standing West Bank policy. And the box of possibilities has been thrown wide open, with demonstrations already planned at the Flashpoint sites. And of course, a perhaps bigger question: what does this mean for Gaza policy? And we'll take a look at that in a moment. But first, a bit of explainer to do here. We're joined in the studio by our defense correspondent, Jonathan Regev here. Jonathan, we brought you in to specifically break down a bit about 2005. What this legislation was about back then, what it actually did, and what the changes today represent. So what happened back in 2005 for our viewers, to sort of recap that incredible moment?
So the 2005 disengagement, I think, widely focused on Gaza, and rightfully so. Israel pulling out of the Gaza Strip all of the civilians, all of the military. That was a major deal. That was not all of it. There were also four settlements in the northern West Bank which were dismantled, evacuated. They were called Ganim, Kadim, Sanur, and one name which comes up again and again, that is Homesh. That settlement was also evacuated. But ever since, settlers have been trying to go back there. The disengagement plan basically evacuated those 4 settlements, and also said that in that specific area, basically no settlers will be allowed. But we know that the settlers have been trying to form a yeshiva there, a sort of a secondary Bible school, we can call it this way. Ever since then, we're speaking nearly 18 years now. And the law that was passed this week basically allows them to go back to that area. Now, this puts Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu in a shaky position, because on one hand, he wants to satisfy his coalition, which depends on far-right elements that have been pushing for such a legislation for nearly 20 years, since the disengagement itself. On the other hand, this opens the door for wide international criticism, saying that Israel is, in a way, retracting from the disengagement plan. So Benjamin Netanyahu now walking between the lines there. In a statement that he put out a short time ago, the Prime Minister's office is saying that these people have the right to return to Homesh. There's no point in basically not allowing Jews to settle themselves anywhere in the West Bank. This comes from the office of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, who, we have to remind, back in 2005 voted in favor of this plan. On the other hand, the statement from the Prime Minister's office says that Israel does not plan to form new settlements in this area. So retracting from the disengagement on one hand, not retracting from the other hand. If you have to explain this to a world which is already furious at Israel following the remarks made by a finance minister, who's also a minister in the defense ministry, Bezalel Smotrich, it's a difficult issue, and we know that there's wide criticism on Israel regarding this decision. And any statement coming from the Prime Minister's office saying that no new settlements will be built in that area does not help very much.
Absolutely. Jonathan Regev, thanks for bringing it down. Again, important to just bring that perspective on what took place in 2005 as we get into discussing it now. So thanks for being with us on that. But we go a little bit more to the source here to get some perspective on the impact of this on the ground. We're happy to be joined by Yishai Fleischer right now, the international spokesperson for the Jewish community of Hebron, also an advisor to Israel's National Security Minister, Tamar Ben-Gvir. So thanks for being with us, Yishai, as always.
Thank you.
Look, I want to start out, we didn't get to it here in the conversation, but Israel's Minister of National Missions, gave us perhaps a hint of what next steps there may be here. And I don't know if we have the soundbite to play here. If we do, I want to hear from that right now.
I believe that the withdrawal sin will be fixed. We are in a process of national understanding. I don't know how many years it will take, unfortunately. The return to the Gaza Strip will include many casualties, as was the departure from the Gaza Strip. There's no doubt that Gaza is a part of Israel, and a day will come when we will return to that area.
Look, Yishai, as you're aware, a lot of questions and concerns around what's happening right now. Prime Minister Netanyahu, on the other hand, saying there will be no new settlements. Do you agree? Where's this issue going? Is this a breakthrough moment for the settlement movement? What's going to happen?
First thing, David, it's great to come to you from the Knesset. I'm one of the kind of smoking areas right outside of the Knesset building. And I'm very proud today to be able to discuss the repeal of the let's call it evil or incorrect or broken disengagement law of 2005 that kicked Jews out of their ancestral homeland in Gaza and also in northern Samaria. I went to the army. I served in the paratroopers. Our training base was in Sanur, which was this beautiful area in northern Samaria. Suddenly came this law. I called it disengagement law. It was really, the Americans were very much in favor of it, and they pushed it along. And the Jewish people in Israel said this is a bad idea. We said the voters of the Likud, had a referendum. We said no, it's a bad idea to kick Jews out of these places. First thing, it's our ancestral homeland, and second, you're going to create a terrorist state in these places. That's exactly what happened. We were kicked out of our homeland. It was undermined our ancestral rights, and at the same time empowered the jihad to take over Gaza. And then we've had already since then, you could count it, maybe 5 wars. It's hard to count because there's been so many mini wars along there as well. Basically, we were promised that we were going to get security. Quote unquote settlers, people that don't believe that land giveaway to the jihad is a good idea, said we're just going to get rockets rained upon us. That's exactly what happened. Finally, this Knesset in 2023 repealed that law of the disengagement. And now we're going to have free access to move in our ancestral homeland in northern Samaria.
Is that the next step, Yishai? Will there be new settlements established soon?
We'll see about that. You saw the statement by Prime Minister Netanyahu. But the simple fact is that the law says we'll be able to travel there, drive through there, have picnics there. You'll be able to go to places like Chomish and Sanur. Surely, I think it's no secret that Jews that believe in the integrity of the ancestral homeland, what I call the heartland of the Holy Land, want to see our communities rebuilt there.
I want to put this to you in a different way here right now. And of course, all the things you're mentioning, you're right. The ideas behind the 2005 withdrawals that were supposed to create an environment that would foster peace. Yeah, that hasn't happened, and we're fully aware that really nothing positive has been developed on the ground. But what are the prospects for long-term peace? Separation, call it, avoiding a one-state solution from the Palestinians who aspire to national independence in these areas. Where does it go with them?
That's a big question. That's a big question. We don't believe that the Palestinians have a right for national self-determination on our ancestral homeland. The Arab world is huge, much bigger than the United States. It's got 400 million Arabs, 22 Arab countries, and more Muslim states as well. This small portion of the Middle East is our ancestral homeland. It's so recognized by international law in 1917, 1920, 1922. The mandate for Palestine was a mandate for a Jewish Palestine. And so we believe that this is our land, and we believe that actually the way towards peace is not by giving up and allowing elements like the jihad to take over your land and then fight wars with them from within your own land. But it's to be strong in the Middle East. That's the way you make it around here. You hold onto the line, you make sure that your tribal lands stay strong, and then you reach out, like the Abraham Accords, to fellow Arab countries, to our fellow Semitic cousins, and say to them, okay, let's have a strong Jewish state surrounded by strong Arab states. And that's actually the way forward to regional peace.
Yishai, I got to get your thoughts on Gaza. Are you advising, or is Minister Ben-Gvir, is Gaza the next push, to sort of repeal the laws prohibiting settlement in Gaza?
Look, the reality is that today Gaza, sadly, is a jihadistan, a Hamasistan, and it's got 2 million Arabs. They are under the thumb of the Hamas. It would be nice to liberate them from this evil regime. Like, it's a little bit like Afghanistan over there. I don't think there's any plans for that right now, and we'll keep on bleeding and fighting with the rockets and with the issues that come out of there, because we made a historic mistake. It's not so easy to rectify that. But northern Samaria is much easier to rectify. There isn't a huge Hamas population there. And so let's take it step by step. Gaza will have to keep on dealing with the historic mistake of the 2005 disengagement.
It's certainly a mess down there. Yishai Fleischer, thanks for being with us on this, giving us some insight to just where this may or may not be going. We appreciate your time.
Thank you, David.
Stepping out for a short break, though, we'll still have much more to discuss on this. Certainly, as it's spilling into the United States, the U.S. ambassador, or the ambassador to the U.S. summoned. A lot to discuss. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back now as we continue really focusing on the topic at hand here. The Biden administration, they summoned Israeli ambassador to the U.S., Michael Herzog. for a sudden meeting at the State Department Tuesday. It's a rarely taken diplomatic step by this Biden administration in particular, and all amidst the still escalating protest movement here against the government's judicial overhaul, the repealing of a law that now may allow the resettlement of evacuated areas of the northern West Bank. Now, a readout of the meeting, though, with the ambassador issued by the State Department said that American officials, quote, conveyed U.S. concern, close quote, over just where this is all headed. And to get more perspective on that, now we're joined in the studio by Dr. Michael Oren, the former Israeli ambassador to the U.S., former deputy Israeli minister and a member of the Knesset as well, and also Moshe Raz, former member of the Israeli parliament of the Meretz party. Thank you both for being here. Look, Ambassador, I got to come to you first. I mean, seeing U.S. Ambassador Herzog summoned, I believe you were the last ambassador to the U.S. summoned by the administration. I think that was in 2010, also over some settlement building controversy. How severe of a moment is this with the State Department, with the White House?
It's severe. I got to say that my friend Mike Herzog got off kind of easy because the State Department only expressed concern. My summoning to the State Department was about condemnation, about the Ramat Shlomo building project and the slap in the face, supposedly, which the State of Israel gave to then President Obama during the visit of then Vice President Joe Biden. But still, it's very unpleasant. It's very unusual in diplomatic circles. And then the ambassador has to explain his government's position the best that he or she can. I'm sure that what Mike Herzog did was to say, well, listen, we have our politics. We have internal politics, too, just like you have internal politics. This was a promise which our ministers had made to their constituents, to their electorate, and that, yes, we made this decision, but that doesn't mean we're actually going to build these settlements tomorrow.
Do you think the reassuring words of Prime Minister Netanyahu are having an impact at this point? I mean, how much weight are they having?
No, they're having an impact, but the problem is that's not the complete context. They're coming in the context of other ministers in this government supporting violence against Palestinian civilians, denying the existence of a Palestinian people, and the government not actually taking steps to disassociate itself from those remarks, so certainly not to condemn them. So that is creating a context which is very difficult for this White House, and I know this White House quite well. Joe Biden, his Secretary of State, his National Security Advisor, people I work very closely with. They're very supportive of Israel. They care about the alliance, but they've got their internal politics too. They got a Democratic Party which has a progressive wing, which isn't happy with the White House because the White House hasn't followed through on its promises to pressure Israel.
Look, Moshe, I want to bring you to this. When it comes to the settlement issue in the northern West Bank, we heard from a representative of the Hebron community here, Fleischer, just a minute ago. To give us more perspective on this.
He's a representative of the Jewish community, which is a very small part of.
So how damaging do you see such a repeal of the laws like this, the opening of doors for possible more settlement activity in the northern West Bank? What are your main concerns?
First, I think that in a way this is a kind of legislation of annexation. Of course, it is not annexation, but this is an unusual case, while legislation in the Knesset is regarding territory, occupied territory that is not part of Israel, even according to the Israeli law. Second, this is a kind of support to the violence of settlers who actually created this settlement. Prime Minister Netanyahu said we are not going to create more settlements, but the settlement is already there. Against the law, according to the law, they have to be punished, they have to be evacuated. It never happened. And this is a kind of a gift that the government, the Knesset, is giving them while supporting them. And yes, I agree with my colleague, Michael Oren, that while you have ministers in the government who promote violence, who support violence, who say, who deny the existence of the Palestinian people and of the Jordanian kingdom, by the way. So this is a kind of many, many things together. You don't have to wait for few settlers to go in there. They are already there.
The optics are there, certainly. And Dr. Oren, to bring this back to you, I mean, and he brings up, the Middle East, the Jordanian reaction, Jordanian parliament, and an uproar today. It's having an apparent effect on our new Middle East relations. The United Arab Emirates issuing some comments. We're not sure if they're going to be distancing a little bit from Israel. The Saudis even issuing some, condemnations. Has this all affected, the budding relations around the Middle East as well already? Are we seeing it?
Oh, certainly. The ministers have been invited and now kind of disinvited. The talk about possible warming relations between Israel and Saudi Arabia has been put on a back burner, if not in a refrigerator, right now. And I'll go out on a limb and say even the signing of this agreement between Saudi Arabia and Iran with the mediation of China, and now the invitation of the Iranian president to visit Riyadh, has a certain impact. It reflects to a certain degree what's going on here. Because the Saudis had looked on Israel as being one of the great bulwarks against Iranian expansions, against the Iran nuclear program. And look what we're doing. We're not involved. Our eye is anything but on the Iranian ball right now.
Mostly, where, I want to bring to the protest movement that's going on, that's so dominating. We're going to see a lot more of that tomorrow again. Look, besides marching and screaming in the streets, what can or will be done to counter what this government's doing? What are the plans, to try to intervene in some way?
I think marching and screaming in the streets, and it happens more and more, not every week, every day. I saw films from today, demonstrations in front of ministers in the government. This is a kind of protest that we never knew in this state, in the number of protesters, in the number of places, in the number of, it's not okay once in a month, once in a week, it's daily, every day. It's very clear that the majority of the Israelis, first, the majority of the Israelis, I have to say, did not vote to this government. This government got only 48% of the voters. Second, it's very clear that even some of the supporters of this government do not support these very extreme acts against the court in Israel.
I want to thank you both for being with us. A lot to digest, a lot happening on a daily basis here. Dr. Michael Oren and Moshe Raz, thanks for being with us.
Thank you.